So after 2 weeks of hardcore playing for me, with full-time job of course, I put in just under 60 hours into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I have seen the credits and I have only done about half of the side content, and of course I still have a myriad of trophies left to get to 100% the game, which I am glad at, because I'm gonna be playing this game for a very long time. Now, I have made 2 other videos about this game, and they were both glowing, and after completing the game, it's still glowing. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is as perfect as you can get, with a recreation of obviously part of Final Fantasy VII, but then I look at Remake and Rebirth as basically 2 parts of a whole, and when the third and final part of the remake comes out, I'll treat all 3 games as one Gimondo game, which I think is the intent anyway. But I have to be perfectly honest, as a fan of the original Final Fantasy VII, this remake is fantastic. Of course, it's not fully turn-based like the original game, but I do have to say that Remake and Rebirth, in my opinion, I prefer to play to the original game. Not that I dislike the original game at all in any way. Not at all. I still love it. It's still basically Remake and Rebirth and the original Final Fantasy VII sit at my number 1 game of all time. Final Fantasy VII has been my favourite game of all time since it came out in '97, and it hasn't shaken since. It's still up there and I still love it, and Rebirth was just an incredible experience to play through. A couple of mild spoilers for anyone who may or may not have played it, but there were a couple of changes which I do want to talk about, because they did change quite a lot. They added some bits as well which I really liked, like Yuffie's inclusion in the Junon area and what she added to the story there and how she comes into it. I hope that we get to see her do what she does with the materia in the original game, and I hope we get that section in the third part, where we get to go to Wutai and whatnot. That would be pretty cool. But if it's not there, I mean, it was optional content in the original game anyway, so we'll just have to see. So I really liked her inclusion there. They did change Cid's introduction into the story. I think it's completely changed. I'm guessing we'll get more of an expanded history or whatnot on Cait Sith, Vincent and Cid in the third game, obviously with finding out who, obviously original Final Fantasy VII fans know who Cait Sith is, but with Cid they changed his backstory, so instead of being part of the Shinra space program and wanting to go to outer space, he winds up as a maintenance engineer for Shinra and helps Aerith and her mother escape. It's basically only mentioned. You don't get any like cutscenes and whatnot. But I mean, it's fine. I quite liked the whole space part and fighting Palmer and getting on the Bronco and then flying off and having it break down and stuff. But I did like to see that you still get the broken down tiny Bronco in the water to use as like a paddle boat. That was pretty cool. That was just a change. That was the biggest change I think that they made to the story. Vincent's is still pretty much similar to how it was in the original game, except for they made him a really cool boss fight initially, and then he's just kind of there in the background throughout the remainder of the game. So I'm fairly certain he will be massively expanded upon, just like Cid, where having them both as playable characters in the final game, and that would be awesome. Another change, which I think was actually for the better, was having the Temple of the Ancients and the Forgotten City both on the northern continent, because in the original game the Temple of the Ancients is on like a southern island, and geographically it makes sense to have them both together on the same continent, and not spread throughout both North and South Pole. So that was an omission that I thought was sensible and made a lot of sense. And that Temple of the Ancients part and Forgotten City was just wow. It was just brilliant. It was a spectacle. It was epic. The final boss fight was fantastic. And during the Temple of the Ancients, each character has to go through these trials where you get to see events from their past, or events that you have heard about but not seen. And like a couple of them, like Red 13s or Nanakis, if you want to call him his actual name, or like Aerith's and all that, where she's a little girl. They hit hard. It's very, very especially for an original fan. There were plenty of choke up moments in Rebirth. Not in just like the main story alone, not to mention the fact that every single one of these characters, besides Sid and Vincent, who come into it a lot later, but the main cast, everyone gets their time to shine. There is plenty of different there are mini games and there are sections of the game where like you play as Red 13 and you can run up walls, you play as Barrett and you're on like a minecart and you're shooting things, or you're shooting out the back of the car that you get in the corral area. There are just sections of the game which are just, that breaks up the normal gameplay and are just fun, and that's what I really like. And yeah, the amount of side content in there, which is all optional, and you do not have to do it if you don't want to, but it is staggering. The amount of stuff they've put in the game is very, very impressive, and I still have a ton of stuff to do. I'm gonna let it digest for a few weeks. I've got some more games I'm clearing off my backlog, and some other videos that I also want to put together, but 100% Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is so far, I know we are only in April, but so far is the game of the year, and judging by what else is coming out this year, I don't see anything on the horizon as of yet that will take it out of Game of the Year. It is a phenomenal game, a fantastic achievement by Square Enix, and the fact that it's only been in development since 2019, when was it in development? It began development just before Remake came out. So in 2019. So you look at what they've done with Rebirth, with it being in development for 5 years, and then you look at what happened to Skull and Bones and Suicide Squad, which were in development for longer. And it's also part of the argument on why games, they're taking so long to come out, and when they do, what the hell happened. But with Remake and Rebirth, because Remake began production in 2015 and then was released in 2020, Rebirth was 2019, released in 2024, so I'm guessing we're going to get the third part. I don't think it should be that long, because during the latter half of the original game, you return to like Junon and a lot of other areas. There are some new areas, of course, but you return to previously existing areas. So most of the assets, pretty much a lot of the assets required for the third part of the game, are still within Rebirth. I imagine they're going to rejig all the way the world looks with the whole meteor situation and whatnot, and the side quests and optional activities. I'm sure they'll put in some new ones, but for the most part, most of what they need is in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to create the third game. I don't know what. I mean, I'm guessing. I mean, I did put forward Reunion, and then somebody commented and said that Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion was there, so I thought, okay, well maybe it can be Reunion then, because they've used that for Crisis Core, but I don't know, we shall see. But please, if you have a PlayStation 5 and you were thinking about picking up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, please do. The game is fantastic, and if you haven't played either Remake or Rebirth, obviously I'd start with Remake, but Rebirth makes Remake look like a demo. That is how good it is, and it's just insane. It blew my expectations way out the water. It just annihilated everything for me. I had no idea how big this game actually was. I did avoid a lot of trailers and stuff, but yeah, this game is mind-blowing. But please let me know in the comments down below what you think of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and as always, thank you very much for watching.